What if everything you see, hear, and feel is nothing more than a convenient lie? A fabrication so convincing that you've mistaken it for truth? The harsh reality is this: what you call reality is merely a distortion, a subjective hallucination carefully crafted by your brain. From the moment you wake up, your senses flood you with information. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of traffic in the distance, the taste of coffee in your mouth, all of these seem real. But they are not reality itself. They are filtered, altered, and interpreted by your mind before you ever become aware of them. The world you think you know is nothing more than a simulation running inside your head. Neuroscience confirms this unsettling fact. Your eyes do not see reality. They capture electromagnetic waves that your brain translates into color and shape. But colors do not exist outside of your mind. The red of an apple is not a property of the apple itself. It is simply how your brain processes certain wavelengths of light. If your mind were wired differently, you would see a completely different world. Some animals, like mantis shrimp, perceive spectrums of light that human beings cannot even fathom. If they could describe their world to you, it would sound like madness. But what if the madness is yours? Your ears do not hear objective sound. They detect air vibrations that your brain interprets as music, speech, or noise. A deaf person experiences a completely different reality, yet their world is no less real than yours. The same applies to all your senses. You don't smell with your nose, you smell with your brain. You don't touch with your hands, you touch with your nervous system. Every sensation is reconstructed in your mind, and that means it can be altered, distorted, or even fabricated. Consider optical illusions. A simple drawing can trick your brain into seeing motion where there is none, or perceiving depth on a flat surface. If your brain can be fooled so easily, how can you trust anything it tells you? The truth is, you can't. What you see is not the world as it is. It is the world as your mind allows you to see it. This illusion is not limited to vision. Your entire sense of self is just another fabrication. Experiments show that it's possible to make someone feel as if they inhabit a body that isn't theirs. Scientists have used virtual reality and sensory tricks to convince people that a rubber hand is their own. With the right stimulation, your brain will accept the impossible without question. Now, if your body and senses can deceive you so easily, what about your thoughts? Are they truly yours, or are they just another layer of illusion? If perception is an unreliable narrator, then everything you believe about yourself, your identity, your memories, your emotions, could be just as artificial. And if that's true, then what is real? Perhaps nothing. Or perhaps reality is whatever you choose to believe. If your senses are unreliable, then what about your thoughts? What about your beliefs, the very foundation upon which you've built your understanding of the world? What if they, too, are nothing more than carefully crafted illusions? From the moment you were born, you inherit a world that is already defined for you. Your name, your nationality, your religion, or lack thereof, your moral code. These things were not chosen by you. They were given to you. Like a prisoner born inside a cage, you never question the bars because you've never known anything else. You accept your reality, not because it is true, but because it was presented to you as truth. Philosopher Michel Foucault argued that power is not just about laws or violence, it is about knowledge. The most effective prison is the one where the prisoners believe they are free. You are conditioned to accept certain narratives as absolute truth. Money has value because society says it does. Nations exist because people agree to imagine their borders. Morality shifts depending on culture and era. And yet, most people never stop to question whether the systems governing their lives are real or just useful fictions. Think about the beliefs you hold most dear. Are they truly yours? Or were they implanted in you by parents, teachers, governments, and the endless flood of media designed to shape your perception? The more you examine them, the more you realize that belief is not about truth. It is about control. If society can control what you believe, it can control how you behave. Religious texts, political ideologies, economic theories, these are not neutral ideas. They are structures designed to shape how you interpret reality. George Orwell's 1984 warned of a world where language itself was manipulated to limit thought. If you lack the words to express rebellion, can you even conceive of it? This is not fiction. It is already happening. Every word you speak, every thought you have, has been shaped by forces outside of you. But here's the real trap. Even when you break free from one belief system, you inevitably fall into another. The human mind is not comfortable with uncertainty. It seeks patterns, explanations, a sense of order. This is why conspiracy theories thrive. When people reject mainstream narratives, they don't embrace pure skepticism. They simply replace one illusion with another. The need to believe is stronger than the need to know. This is the paradox of freedom. To truly be free, you must first recognize that your thoughts are not your own. But once you do, what happens next? Can you ever escape the cage of ideology? Or do you simply trade one prison for another? If every system is a construct, then how do you know which, if any, deserve your trust? The only certainty is uncertainty, and perhaps that is the most terrifying truth of all. If reality is an illusion, then who or what is creating it? The answer lies not in philosophy, but in the very structure of your brain. Neuroscience has revealed a disturbing truth. Your mind does not passively receive reality. It actively constructs it. What you experience is not the world as it is, but the world as your brain allows you to perceive it, and sometimes it lies to you. Take memory, for instance. You trust your recollections, believing them to be accurate recordings of past events. But neuroscience has proven that memory is not a static archive. It is a constantly rewritten story. Every time you recall an event, your brain modifies it. Details shift, emotions change, entire scenes may be fabricated. In studies, scientists have successfully implanted false memories into subjects, making them vividly remember events that never happened. If your past can be rewritten so easily, then what does that say about your sense of self? Are you anything more than a collection of flawed recollections? But memory is just the beginning. Consider free will, the belief that you consciously decide your actions. It feels real. You assume you are in control, but experiments suggest otherwise. Studies by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet show that the brain prepares to make a decision before you are even aware of it. Brain activity spikes milliseconds before you think you have chosen something. In other words, your unconscious mind decides first, and your conscious mind merely rationalizes it after the fact. You are not the author of your actions. You are merely their narrator. And what about consciousness itself? The sense of self that feels so real, so fundamental. This too is an illusion. Neuroscientists like Anil Seth describe consciousness as a controlled hallucination, a process of the brain predicting reality rather than perceiving it. Your sense of being you is not a fixed entity, but a fluid, ever-changing construct, built moment by moment. Damage to certain brain regions can erase personality, alter identity, or even create the illusion of multiple selves. If your sense of self can be so easily disrupted, then how can you trust it? Then there are split brain patients, people whose brain hemispheres have been surgically separated. In these individuals, each hemisphere operates independently, almost like two separate consciousnesses trapped in the same body. One half can answer a question, while the other remains unaware. This suggests that the unified self you experience is merely a convenient fiction, a patchwork of neural processes masquerading as a singular identity. The implications are unsettling. If memory is unreliable, free will is an illusion, and the self is a construct, then what remains? Who or what are you? The truth is, you are not a solid entity. You are a shifting process, a ghost in the machine of your own brain. And if the brain itself is responsible for constructing this illusion, then how can you ever hope to see beyond it? If everything you know, your senses, your memories, your identity, is a carefully crafted illusion, then what hope is there for truth? Can you ever escape the simulation? Or are you forever trapped inside a reality that is not your own? Many have tried to answer this question. Philosophers, mystics, and scientists alike have searched for a way out. Plato described the allegory of the cave, where prisoners mistake shadows on a wall for reality, unaware of the world beyond. Descartes doubted everything until he arrived at the single certainty. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But even that certainty is fragile. If your thoughts can be manipulated, then what does it mean to exist at all? Some seek truth in science, hoping that logic and reason will unveil the objective world. But science itself depends on perception, and perception is flawed. Quantum physics tells us that reality is not as solid as it seems. Particles behave differently when observed, as if the act of perception itself alters reality. If even the building blocks of existence are uncertain, then how can we claim to know anything with confidence? Others turn to spirituality, believing that enlightenment can dissolve the illusion. Eastern philosophies teach that the self is an illusion, that liberation comes from transcending the ego. But here's the paradox. To escape the illusion, you must first recognize that you are part of it. And if the self is an illusion, then who or what is seeking truth in the first place? Some argue that technology will provide an answer. The idea of simulation theory, popularized by thinkers like Nick Bostrom, suggests that we are living inside a sophisticated artificial reality, a cosmic video game created by an unknown intelligence. If this is true, then the only way to escape is to wake up, to hack the code, to find the exit. But what if there is no exit? What if the simulation is so complete that even questioning it is part of the program? And then there is the most terrifying possibility, that truth itself does not exist. That reality is not something to be found, but something to be created. If there is no absolute reality, then the only power you have is to construct your own. Nietzsche warned of the dangers of believing in absolute truths, arguing that human beings must learn to create their own meaning in a meaningless world. So, where does that leave you? If you cannot trust your senses, your thoughts, or even your own identity, then what can you trust? Perhaps the only answer is this: embrace the illusion, not as something to be feared, but as something to be mastered. If reality is a construct, then you are not a prisoner. You are the architect. You may never know the truth, but you can decide what truth means to you. And maybe, just maybe, that is the only reality that matters.